The following is a Candlepin Stars and Strikes rebroadcast featuring some of our most memorable programs.
WNDS Sports and Tri-State Megabucks present Candlepin Stars and Strikes.
Oh, look at this. Look at this! He got it! Ready for a spin!
Candlepin Stars and Strikes is sponsored in part by Washington Toyota Dodge Nissan. Looks good.
Looks good! That's good to go! It's a goal!
Candlepin Stars and Strikes is produced in conjunction with the New Hampshire Candlepin Bowling Association. And now your hosts, Doug Brown and Dan Murphy.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. Week 2 continues. We move to Stars and Strikes here from Park Place Lanes, and good afternoon to you. Thanks for joining us. Doug Brown along with Dan Murphy. Week 2 features the return of Gary Carrington after a win last week, and, the opponents don't get any easier as you work your way up the ladder, and we've got another guy who's been here on many occasions before.
No, the checks get a little bigger prize money. The talent, I think it gets any better, but it certainly is any easier, that's for sure.
All right, let's meet our two bowlers. First of all, our number 4 seed had the win last week, looking for 2 in a row from Plastow, New Hampshire, Gary Carrington.
Okay, Gary comes in averaging 133. His roll-off score was 663.
And last week, Gary rolled a 376 to beat Mark Gallant with a 341. And last week, Gary really had the spare ball working. He made some terrific shots.
It was almost like a clinic, especially that first game. And the second game, he missed. They had some great opportunities and just missed those spares. So.
All right. Second week in a row, Gary is here, and he'll try for his second win in a row against our number 3 seed from Concord, New Hampshire, Chuck Langlois.
Okay, Chuck comes in averaging 125, has a high single of 200, which is a story in itself, and his roll-off score 676.
And I have a feeling we'll hear that story about Chuck's 200 a little bit later on in the show. We'll have $30 in the bonus ball contest. That's later on, too, but we've got 3 strings of bowling coming up. Gary Carrington and Chuck Langlois, and they will get it started right after we get to these messages. Don't go away. Last week, if you missed it, Gary Carrington knocked off Mark Gallant, 376 to 341. So Gary goes for number 2 in a row today. Chuck Langlois is his opponent. The winner today comes back next week to face Chris Sargent, our number 2 seed. And 2 weeks from today, our championship match will feature our number 1 seed, Joe Ashline, against whoever is still remaining from the 3 bowlers we have left. So Gary Carrington set to go after the match last week in which he had 12 marks. 11 spares. And he got off to a fast start. He had 5 consecutive marks in game 1. Built up a big lead, saw that lead cut to single figures in the second game, but he was able to build it back up again and win it by 35.
As we said in the opening, he made some great spares, some fantastic shots.
Half Worcester right this time. And an 8 box. 17 opening pair.
Yeah, our first look at Chuck Langlois in about 7 years, is it?
No, it's not quite that long. Chuck actually was here in doubles competition last December. He was paired with Phil Clough. They won their first match with a terrific 4-24, but then they were eliminated the following week in a very close match by 5 pins. Steve Lavery and Roger Bowden beat them.
Oh, right up and over the 7-pin.
But the last time Chuck was here in singles competition was 4 years ago.
4 years ago, that's what I meant.
October of '89. Chuck probably remembers that match. He came in and threw a 399 against Steve Vadney, but it wasn't good enough. Steve threw a 410 to beat him.
A lot of times it's not good enough when you're bowling Steve Batney. Right on the head pin, and let's see, the 6 and the 7 left. Probably will choose the wood in front of the 6 and see if he can snap it off the wall, take the 6 and possibly the 7 as well.
No.
So both bowlers will be open. First two.
And the 9. Gary right in the pocket that time. I think he was waiting for something good to happen on that ball after he threw it.
The ball was just buried in the 1-3 pocket, spinning right 3/4. It's just a matter of time before they all went. Striking the 3rd.
Just catching the head pin that time, and he kicks out the 3 pin, which is going to make this one a little tougher.
Yeah, I think maybe he wanted that 3 pin to stay up. No, he's trying to motion to the piece of wood to come back out a little further, but he's looking at the 7 and a 9. Piece of wood just out in front of the 9 pin. So obviously going to try to use that wood. Not much you can do with that one.
So after the long run of spares early in last week's show, Gary starts with a strike this time. Chuck Langlois. The 676 in the roll-off. Spares it up, his first mark.
First mark, of course, a spare in the 3rd, matching the strike. Right back in it, and
yes.
a strike on spare. That could have just easily been 2 strikes in a row because it was a solid 9-pin drop on lane 32, just leaving the 5 pin. This time he covers all 10 pins for the strike on spare.
Gary back up, a little heavy on the head pin, but he carries the extras.
Let the 4 fall into the 2 pin, leaves himself the 6-10 with a nice piece of wood that's covering the 6.
And the spare.
Use it effectively for both the 6 and the 10 pins. His second mark. One of each now, a spare and a strike.
Seven drop.
2, 5, and 8. So it helps with the wood just to the left. We keep the ball in play for the 8 pin.
Oh, right around it.
I said that, but
well, that
still had trouble with the 8.
That piece of wood would have taken the 8 pin down, but I believe 2 pieces of wood collided, and that's why it didn't go down. Let's check it out and see. Watch the piece of wood off the sidewall, and they
Right
collide
there.
right there.
Great call, Doug. Good eyes. Boy. Double?
Yes.
Yes.
For Chuck Langlois, double strike.
And that could have been a triple. Just nudging the 7 pin right there.
Oof, just as it falls into the pit. This time an 8 drop.
2 and 7 pins. Piece of wood nestling up against this 2 pin, which would help the shot tremendously now to keep the 2 pin in play. Oh, he's high. He's too high.
Wrestling, that's another show. This is bowling. And the $10 for Chuck.
That's just like wide right. Full Nelsons.
So Chuck Langlois is on the strength of the spare double strike with the early 23-pin lead here.
And he's been all over the head pin. I believe every box so far.
Light hit for Gary, but he'll shoot at the triangle. No. Talked about how close some of the roll-off scores were. Joe Ashline was 50 pins ahead of the rest of the field. Second place, Chris Sargent at 678. But then only 2 pins between Chris Sargent in second and Chuck Langlois in third. And there's a strike for Gary Carrington, and that was kind of an odd-looking strike, Dan.
Like they all hesitated before they started the fall, right there, and then everything collapsed.
Then for fourth and fifth place, oh, Chuck has another one. Oh, my.
Remember the doubles. The last time he was in the doubles competition, didn't he throw like 6 strikes out of 8 boxes or something like that? It was incredible. Threw a lot of strikes. Or maybe it was just marks. Something jar my memory here. That time all over the head pin, but this time full. Chops out the 1, 5, and 9 pins, and woo, right through the middle. Only a 3 on a strike.
That hurts.
So that kind of negates that strike. Only a total of 19 pins in those 2 boxes.
Chuck did, in fact, throw a triple strike back in December last year. Partnered with Phil Clough.
Threw a triple, but he threw a lot of strikes too, right?
Right. And actually, as a team, in this particular match, in which they beat Jack Quinn and Neil Goslin, Chuck and Phil threw 8 strikes.
And I think if we figured the boxes out, I think Chuck had 7 of them. Of course, we don't know who was bowling.
You're correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do know. We keep track of everything here.
Everything.
7 of the 8 strikes were Chuck's. Very good. Now that's 7 strikes in 16 boxes, I should mention.
Right. And he's got 3 and 8 today. Well, there's one. 5, 7, 10. Would like that wood in front of the 5 to turn just a little more. He's got a good chance of covering the 5 and the 7. The 10 pin could be the problem. Oh, nice.
What a shot.
Nicely done.
Spare in the 10th. And Chuck forgot what box we were in. Chuck wanted to pull Gary back so he wouldn't be able to fill this spare in the 10th.
Pretty good defense. That's another game. 120 and a ball for Gary.
And make it 7. 127 for Gary Carrington.
Chuck Langlois will have the lead, I would assume, just by how much is another story. He's already at 115.
No, a little short of the head pin that time on lane 32. Only a 1-pin difference in the roll-off between Gary Carrington in 4th and Mark Gallant in 5th. Oh, great shot for a spare by Chuck Langlois.
See the stubborn 9-pin, last one to go, but excellent spare off the ball of Chuck Langlois in the 9th.
Only his 2nd spare. But he's had the 3 strikes, including a double. Now in 6th place, just missing making our television series. And another spare.
And that was a difficult spare too, with a sleeper in the back.
Expand on the roll-off scores in a little bit because we want to watch Chuck's fill here. He's at 142 plus this next ball.
The ball stayed in play just long enough to clip the 8-pin. He's 142 plus this ball.
149 opening game for Chuck Langlois, picking right up where he left off in doubles last December. Throwing strikes and getting a big score to start. 149, a 22-pin lead for Chuck Langlois. 2 games to go, though. We'll be back with Game 2. Details in our bonus ball contest in a minute. Chuck Langlois with the lead and starting Game 2.
Just going to look at the 1, 2, 4, 7. 4 horsemen left, plus the 9 and the 10, but a piece of wood in behind the 1 and the 2 should give him some assistance. That close. Just the 4 left.
Now I'm going to get this story in. I've tried twice already. I'll get it in this time. Gary Carrington was 4th in the roll-off with 663. Mark Gallant, whom we saw last week, was at 662. And just 2 pins behind him in 6th place was Dan Broder at 660. Just missed making another television appearance. So although Joe Ashline kind of ran away with it for first place, the rest of the scores were very tight.
3 and 7. Sounds bad, but he's got some wood that could help.
Playing it low and carrying it over for the spare. Big first ball for Gary Carrington. A 9-drop leaving the 9-pin. Well, he probably could have got away with missing it to the right with that wood there, but he was right on top of it.
He would have snapped off the wall, but in a sure way is just hit the 9-pin square and move over to lane 31.
Head pin. Oh, did he get a nice break there? Look at that. He kicked
boy.
out the whole diamond on the right side for another 9-drop.
He's looking at a 5 fill on a spare and a real difficult spare leave. Instead, he's looking at a 9 fill in the 7-pin for another spare. Ooh.
Oh, no. Just slipped off. That might have been the first single Gary's missed in 2 weeks. And again.
Chuck Langlois will fill his spare now in the second.
Oh, big strike on spare.
Telling you, he puts the ball in one of the pockets and those pins just mix. Watch this, they just collapse like they're tied together. Strike on spare.
That's 4 strikes already for Chuck.
We mentioned at the opening of the show this high single of 200. Actually, that's 199. Gave him 200. And the story has it that was also hit on.
Oh, big spare. See how tough it is to get these stories
I know. It's. Can we stop for a while? I actually was doing the color on a show out of Concord, New Hampshire, and Chuck was like he is today. He was not missing the head pin. Spare, strike, double strike. Had 10 marks in a row, had a spare in the last box, needed 7 on it for an even 200, and he only dropped 6. He left the 4 horsemen, a piece of wood rolled up onto the plate. I jumped out of my seat and screamed at the pin. The pin rolled back and knocked another pin down, and he got his 200. So it's actually 199 and 1 pin for Dan. I don't know if Chuck will agree with me, but that was I was just lucky to be part of that. To my knowledge, that's the only 200 game ever thrown on any TV show.
That would be my guess.
It was quite a throw.
Gary Carrington looking for a spare in the 4th here, and he's got a chance with this wood. But let's see. The 3, 6, 7, and 10.
Almost has to miss the 3-pin. Yeah.
Oh.
Had some sidewall action, but in a case like that, almost better to miss the 3-pin, have the wood spin from behind, take the 3, and then hopefully the 7. But
Timeout. Chuck Langlois is working on a spare and has the lead when we come back on Stars and Strikes. Chuck Langlois is working on a spare.
in a series of 3 marks in a row, that being spare, strike, spare. Off target enough that time that gives himself a 7-pin drop. Almost looked like he was going to be a half whister left. But he leaves the 1, the 3, and the 6, trying to make it 4 in a row.
No. Chuck is from Concord, New Hampshire.
I thought we'd never get to this now. Where does he do most of his bowling?
Oh, wait a minute. That's at the end. Easy. Chuck and his wife Peg have 2 children, 3.5-year-old Charles and 1.5-year-old Megan. Chuck works for Alpha Metal Fabrication. There you go. And sorry, no time to finish the story, Dan, because that's a big strike for Chuck Langlois in the 6th. Chuck does a lot of his bowling at a spectacular little place called Boutwell's Bowling Center in Concord.
All right. Where is that again? Ooh, Gary wants that 7-pin to go as well, and it does. Leaves himself the 10-pin for a spare. I've lost count. How many strikes is that for Chuck now?
5.
5 already. Spare for Gary.
Needed it too because Chuck is starting to open the lead up a bit here.
Certainly is. He needs a few strikes of his own. Chuck shows no signs of letting up. Gary on the head pin, that time a little full. 2, 4, and 10 pins left. 7 on a spare. Don't count him out on this shot.
Not quite. The 10. 75 through 6, but as you can see, Chuck Langlois is already with the strike up and 2 fill balls coming in the 6th.
The way he's throwing strikes, gotta be careful he doesn't throw another double, especially lane 32. Missing the head pin again. 1, 3, 6, and the 8 pins. Remember, this is a fill on a strike.
And it's an 8. The lead right now, 42.
I'm sure Chuck realizes he doesn't want to look over his shoulder. Not with the likes of Gary Carrington. He's got to keep putting the marks up. 4 horsemen left. 1, 2, 4, and 7. Piece of wood now is locking itself against the 2 and the 4.
Oh, yeah. Spare in the 8th. That's mark number 11 in 18 frames for Chuck Langlois. Gary on the head pin again, but again a little bit too full. This time he does not carry the extra pin.
6, 7, 10. Piece of wood in 4, 7, 10, I should say. Piece of wood in front of the 4, 7. I'd almost cap it. That's what he's trying to do. Oh boy.
What a great try.
Capped it, got the 7, the 10, and didn't touch the 4.
Take another look at this. Hit it right where he had to hit it.
Gary really needs to put a mark up to match Chuck's right now. It's not going to be an easy one. The 1, the 2, well, it's getting a little easier. And 9 and 10. Piece of wood behind the 1, 2 now, and it's angled toward the 10 pin.
Nope. 2 near misses. Just as easily could have been 2 spares right there.
Absolutely right. So 94 through 8. The lead at 42 plus this ball, though.
Probably deserved 2 spares with those 2 shots. Chuck missing the head pin again, and he's going to get a 9 drop. He's been missing the head pin more often on 32 than he has on 31.
Especially in this game. Takes advantage of that break, though. He's going to have a tremendous 2-game total. He's already at 282. Plus a ball and a box. Oh my! How did that stand up?
Well.
Wow. There was a pin in between the 3 and the 6, too. That was a strange leave.
Another 149 back to back. Let's see it.
Oh, hit it and moved it a little bit. Well, he's consistent, 149, 149.
And Gary missing the head pin. 298 after 2 for Chuck Langlois.
That's 2 games. People saying, geez, I had 300 the other night in the league.
Oh, great $10 for Gary. That's worth another look.
Just splits the 2 and the 4.
Big ball in the 10th, and that wood will line up well for Gary on the 8 and 9. Well, let's wait.
You can see Gary saying, wait, stop. Go back.
It looked good for a minute. He'll still be good, but he's going to have to drive it straight back, and he does.
114 in the 10th, plus this ball. Trailing by 58. $57 if you count the 9, yeah, in the 10th. Plus the 8, minus the 8.
122 for Gary, and a 2-game total of 249. So the difference is 49. With 1 game to go, Chuck Langlois with the lead. We'll be back in a minute. Well, Gary Carrington faces this situation heading into Game 3.
Well, I guess the way you approach this is you're 49 pins down. You just got to tell yourself you have to be pretty close to 150 plus game, and hopefully your opponent has a subpar game. And that means a lot of marks.
Oh my!
I tell you.
Oh man!
4, 7, 10. Splits the 4 and the 7, and just misses that 10 pin.
Boy, just like last week, Gary has had some incredible misses. Check this one again. Ooh, just behind it. Gary, a little full again. Boy, a little full is making the difference right now for Gary, because instead of carrying that extra pin, he's leaving the splits. Again, a pretty good effort. And another $10.
Oh my!
Oh my! That's his 6th strike already in this match.
before the match started, I was talking to Chuck, and seemed pretty relaxed and says he's been bowling pretty well lately, so and he certainly has today. Cindy Sissom is going to have to go down and check that piece of wood, whether it's in play or not.
21 boxes so far. Chuck Langlois has 13 marks, 7 spares and 6 strikes. And that pin was, in fact, touching the deadwood line, so Chuck will get a more clear angle at the 1 and the 8. But slides by.
That's an 8 fill on the strike, increasing his lead to 57.
And there's the 10 box.
Chuck kind of upset with himself. He had to help with the wood the first time around, and then misses it, takes the wood out, and makes the 1 and the 8 without wood the next ball.
Well, right there you saw an example of the difference. We talked about being a little bit full before. That time Gary was a little bit light, and as a result he got a great mix, a 9 drop, and the spare. Let's see what happens here. Watch where the ball hits the head pin. Didn't that time. Well, you knew that was destined to happen after I called attention to it.
I don't want to say anything, but I'm going to tell Gary after the show. He's back on the head pin that time, and the wood cost him that one. The wood behind the head pin prevented the head pin from going down and clearing out the 10.
46 through 4 for Gary. We talked about the roll-off for this series. I want to thank Rick Davis and our friends at Bowling Acres in Peterborough for handling the final roll-off for this series on Stars and Strikes. Oh, look out. Thought maybe Chuck would get a little delayed strike there. The 9 pin, no.
Covers it for the 10.
Remember last time Chuck was here in singles was a little over 4 years ago. He threw a 399. It wasn't enough to win. He may do better than that this time.
I think he's got a real good shot at doing better than that.
Yeah.
Doesn't miss this single.
Through 4. Spare up for Chuck Langlois. We take a break. Chuck in command, but still 6 boxes to go in this one, and we'll be back in a minute. Well, Gary Carrington has 6 boxes left in which to make something happen.
I'm afraid he's going to have to happen with strikes as well.
$10. A little high on the head pin again, driving through the center.
3, 6, 4, 7. No wood to help. Trying to split the 3 and the 6. And he'll be open for the 5th and 6th frames.
Next week, Chris Sargent will face the winner. Chris will be making his first appearance here on Stars and Strikes. That's a spare fill for Chuck Langlois, 5.
Four horsemen right, but he also has the 5-pin.
No. Now, Mike Sargent is a guy that you've known for how long?
Oh, God. Yeah. Oh, we must go back 25 years.
So now, how is that going to make you feel next week when his son is on the show?
Besides old?
Is it another one? Yes, it is. Strike number 7 for Chuck Langlois.
It just gives me an excuse for all the little aches and pains I have. So, see, it's supposed to be this way. Yeah. Of course, we all know Mike Sargent, what a competitor he is. And I'll tell you, Chris is just like him in that respect. And well, it has to be a pretty good bowler. He made the shot, made the show, and Gary made the shot.
Yes, and a great shot it was. Well, you look at what Gary did last week and what he's doing this week, and really the difference is that he's had to shoot at more difficult shots like that one. Last week, he was getting the occasional 8-drop and 9-drop, and he was able to get marks without making the spectacular shots, although he made a few of those too. This week, it's just been that little difference on the head pin. There's another one. It's been just that little difference on the head pin causing leaves like this to happen instead of the easier leaves.
Absolutely right. Of course, Chuck is throwing a lot of strikes too, and you don't have to worry about picking singles up or shooting any spare leaves when you throw strikes.
Yeah, we certainly don't want to take anything away from what Chuck has done, because obviously he's going to be throwing a big score here. For the spare, no. And a 9. Chris Sargent next week. In 2 weeks, series championship match. Our number 1 seed is Joe Ashline. Don't forget, next Saturday here on the Winds at 12 noon, it'll be semifinal week. Stars and Strikes doubles at 12 noon on Saturday. And the semifinals for Stars and Strikes singles competition here Sunday at noon. Of course, we follow some pretty heavy hitters, now.
Well, I was going to mention, we got people who like sports talk shows.
We follow some heavy hitters right now.
We really do.
Saturdays at 11:30, right before Stars and Strikes doubles, Tom King and John Habib with Sports Wrap. And Sunday mornings at 11:30, right before we appear here on Stars and Strikes, High School Sports Review. Jim Rivers and Tony Carnevale.
Maybe you and I should challenge those guys to a bowling match or something.
That's not a bad idea. Another spare for Gary, and again, it's on a split. That's the 3rd consecutive split that he's made for a spare. Don't want to forget our friends at Rockingham Toyota Dodge Nissan on Main Street, Route 97 in Salem, New Hampshire. Come to Salem and save. Rockingham Toyota Dodge Nissan. And how about 4 in a row for Gary? No. It'll be a 10 box, a 123 and a 372 for Gary Carrington. Chuck Langlois with that ball is now over 400. So it will be Chuck to return next week in the semifinals against Chris Sargent. And he's got another spare.
Just tripping the 4-pin on the 4 horsemen.
That's 16 marks, 9 spares, 7 strikes for Chuck Langlois. And he'll have a shot at another one in the 10th. At least one more.
That gives him 414 with through 9 boxes of this 3rd game.
Oh, just missing that one. This pin for 424, and there it is. 126 for Chuck Langlois, a 424. An outstanding triple. Congratulations from Gary Carrington. And there you see it. We'll be back to talk to the bowlers, and we've got $30 and some brand new bowling balls on the line in our bonus ball contest. We'll do all that when we come back from these messages. Stick around. And welcome back to Candlepin Stars and Strikes. Doug Brown along with Dan Murphy. And, well, this week, we talked about it earlier, Gary Carrington had not makeable shots, but made some terrific shots, but was unable to kind of create more easy shots for himself. And, of course, in addition to that, Chuck threw a great score.
Well, is there any doubt in anyone's mind how great a bowler he is? He certainly showed that with his shots that he made. The difference was the strikes. I mean, it takes a lot out of you having to concentrate on every single shot, every single split, and making half of them. But and then Chuck is turned around and working half the effort and throwing strikes, and it's kind of demoralizing after a while.
All right, let's chat with both of our bowlers. First of all, let's bring up Gary Carrington. Gary, come on up. We've got a check here for you, the fourth place check for $175. Boy, it's for you, I guess it was kind of a similar match to last week. We talked about this at the end of last week's show, but again, that little difference on the head pin gives you the difference between an 8 or 9 drop and a split, and you were shooting at a lot of splits today.
Yeah, I wasn't catching it like right on the 1-2 or the 1-3. It was maybe a little full. I kept leaving one on the other side, 2 on one side. Chucky was throwing hammers at me, so.
He had it working. We were talking about, too, the last time he was here, he did the same thing in doubles. He threw an incredible amount of strikes, and, of course, he hit you with the double early.
Yeah, he's got a good strike ball, definitely. Did he throw 8, 9 strikes? Yeah. Whatever.
I'm sure it seemed like 20.
Pulverization right there. It killed me.
Well, it's still very early in the season, Gary. We know we'll be seeing you again, so hopefully it won't be too long. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right, Gary Carrington, our runner-up today, and now Chuck Langlois for our bonus ball contest. We've got $30 up and, of course, brand new sets of bowling balls as well. So let's see if we get a match here. Chuck throws, wait a minute, it's a 9. Hang on. Nope, it'll be a 9. Thought maybe he'd throw another strike. It would have only been appropriate. Dan with the reach. Not a match. Can't quite make out the name. Come on up, Chuck. We'll try and decipher this name. It is from Concord, though. And, and it's a casino postcard. So, unfortunately, the luck was not with you this time. And we'll send a TB50 NHCBA consolation prize out. The guest, by the way, was 7. And, Mr. Langlois, now the last time we talked, when you were here on doubles, you had the strike ball working. What is this now? Have you done something different?
Well, it's probably the 3 years away from it that helped you out sometime. It's been a while. It's been a while since I've been back, and I'm throwing a good ball this year, so I can't complain.
Obviously, you like the lanes here a lot.
Well, I do now. There's been a past few times I didn't really care for them too much, but today I was throwing a good ball. Like Gary said, I was just throwing a hammer.
Well, some days when the strike ball seems to be working, for some reason you don't seem to get a lot of spares, but that wasn't a problem today because you were getting both.
Well, I missed a few pretty easy shots as far as spares, but I'm happy with my bowling for sure.
Well, 424 I guess you'd take pretty much any time.
Absolutely.
Next week, first appearance, a rookie here on the show for Chris Sargent, Mike's son.
I know him well. Good bowler.
We'll be looking forward to it. Thanks very much, Chuck. Congratulations. That, of course, will be in the semifinals next week. Let's have a look. We're down to our final 3 bowlers, and as it happens, it'll be our top 3 on the ladder as Chuck Langlois came in at the number 3 spot, so he holds that position with his win today of 424. And now he will face Chris Sargent, our number 2 seed. That'll be next week, and of course in 2 weeks Joe Ashline will be here for the series championship. A little bit more about Chris Sargent. What can you tell us about him?
Well, he's one of the new generation. You know, the younger bowlers coming up, and there's a lot of hard throwers, and not only are they hard throwers, but they got the accuracy as well. And that's a deadly combination. He's one of them.
All right, of course we'll be looking forward to that match next weekend. Be semifinal time here on Stars and Strikes. First of all, on doubles next Saturday at 12 noon, and then back here Sunday at noon on Stars and Strikes. It'll be singles competition between Chuck Langlois and Chris Sargent. Until then, for Dan Murphy and the whole Win Sports crew, I'm Doug Brown. Have a good week, everybody.